Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me today on J Slay Made in the USA, where we explore truth, expose deception, and inspire courage. Guys, I've got two boys at home. They're 7 and 4 years old, and their education, what they're watching on TV, the books they're reading, all of that stuff matters. And, when I was growing up, there was a lot of the secular world, which had a nice appeal to it. It wasn't so far gone the way that a lot of the Disney movies are today, or at least it didn't seem that way to me. But you get kind of inundated with these messages of, wizards and warlocks and witchcraft. And over time, I think that those things do have an effect on even our spiritual psyche, our spiritual beliefs, as it's like osmosis. It just gets into our head as little kids. So really navigating that as parents is a big deal. And our guest today is Chad Stewart. He's an author. After talking to him a little bit, I think he's a creative visionary behind the whole world of the Britfield series, which I had no idea how big it already is. I mean, we're talking books, movies, just an entire world. They're looking outside of the system to try to set a new standard for children's, entertainment, education, and more. So I'm excited to learn all about that. Chad, thanks for coming on today. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Well, Chad, let's start with the genesis of this whole thing. So what originally led you to want to create Britfield?
Yeah, let me do a quick overview, and then we'll kind of give your audience a great idea. But originally from Newport Beach, California, back east in Wellesley, Massachusetts, 16 years, did my undergraduate in British literature, European history. And then actually went on to graduate school, M.B.A, and then got into investment banking in that world. It was funny, and I've always been born a creative, and I think we all are creative, and I think we all thrive and flourish when we're in our creative environment. And so I was dying to do something fun. I was sent down to this really boring seminar that I had to go to. I think it was insurance, and that's where I started to drift, and I started to doodle. And I doodled a little circle, 3 lines, a basket, and a boy and a girl, and I wrote the boy and the balloon, which was kind of the idea. And I saw this whole story come to life, went home that weekend on one piece of paper and just started to outline it. Kind of takes place in present time, which I think is really important. And we can talk about that. It's not post-apocalyptic, futuristic, space, all this other stuff. Right now, current time. Starts in England, up in Yorkshire, at Weatherly Orphanage. It's about Tom, 12 years old, been an orphan his whole life. He's been at Weatherly for 6 years. His best friend, Sarah, 12 years old. And this is the year that Tom's going to escape. And that's instigated within the first couple of pages, which I thought is great. Kind of, boom, that's the spark. That's the inciting incident. Been here for 6 miserable years. This is the year I escape. So you're like, okay, cool. And then eventually they escape and commandeer hot air balloons, start flying all over England, to Oxford, to Windsor, to London, and finally down to Canterbury. And then, but they're relentlessly chased by the illustrious detective Gowerstone. And before Tom leaves, the oldest orphan, Patrick, gives him a clue because he breaks into the office in his file, and it's the name Britfield. And so you have this sort of clue of Britfield, and there's a royal mystery to it. And so that's kind of it. And so I sat down. Took me 4 years, 2,500 hours just to write book 1. And when I started, I was just thinking one book, and I wasn't thinking 400 pages and stuff. But by the time I got to the end, I thought, gosh, I really have a series. And now it is a 7-book series. We launched book 2, Britfield and the Rise of the Lion, which takes place in France. We launched that in 2021. We launched Britfield and the Return of the Prince, which takes place in Italy. We launched that in 2022. And now I'm working on book 4, Britfield and the Eastern Empire, which takes place in Eastern Europe and Russia. Book 5 will take place in Asia. Book 6 will take place in South America. And book 7 will take place in the United States. And in every book, Tom and Sarah grow by 1 year. So you have a sort of a middle grade specific, target audience of 11 to 12 with book 1. But in book 2, they're 13, which is our bridge into young adult. And then book 3, they're 14. And that's a 575-page book. Amazing. So it's a 7-book series. It's going to be followed by 7 major motion pictures. We've been in development of the first the first Britfield Lost Crown movie for about 2 years. This is our finished 3rd draft polished script, which is kind of exciting. And we're going to be moving into pre-production within the next 6 to 8 weeks. You're going to see some major press releases coming out and stuff. So we're excited. So it's a 7-book series, 7 movies. We're working on 2 television programs. We also have lots of product development and things like that. When I kicked this off in 2019, I started on a national tour. And so I drove 9,000 miles, visited 23 states, presented to more than 23. Presented to more than 200 schools to over 40,000 students, and it was everything: private, public, Christian, Catholic, homeschool, charter, and it was just amazing. And we, everywhere from 4th to 8th grade, and I was there to really inspire them, talking a little bit about my journey, having an idea, and it took 10 years, right, from an idea, 10,000 hours of hard work to finally launching in August 2019. And I was really there to encourage them about creativity, the importance of creativity, individuality, and trusting your instinct and things. So very successful tours since then. We've been doing some virtual author visits globally, like Australia. We got some stuff set up for England. And we've got about 20 countries right now that are interested in purchasing the rights. Our first rights sales was to Poland, as I mentioned earlier, which is great because that's our beachhead for Eastern Europe. And we've got some major global tours in the next 3 years also planned. And then we have South Korea, we've got France, we've got Germany, Spain, Italy, Sweden, all these countries. So we're really excited. So it's a huge movement. Yeah, go ahead.
So it sounds like, huge movement. That's a good way to describe it based on what you're telling me. Not many people go from, I think you said the financial sector, you're sitting there bored, you're doodling, and then all of a sudden you spend 4 years of your life, and I can't remember how many hours you said, into writing one book. Okay, and then you've got this, what you're saying is a global movement. Was this your first foray into being an author?
I think in many ways, yes. When I was young, when I was like 17, 18, I got into script writing for movies. And I've always been fascinated with the film industry and have background there, and was writing movie scripts, was working with professional script writers, on my craft and, creating like a romantic comedy or an action adventure. So I had that sort of background subconsciously. Never wanted to write fiction per se. And I was a published author on the nonfiction side, wrote kind of a fun little 200-page book, you know what I mean? So I had some of this background, but never something like this, especially with that middle school, young adult. Very influenced, like we all are, everything from James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Hardy Boys, just so many, C.S. Lewis, all these great authors and epics. And but no, I didn't have that sort of. I was a British literature major, European history major, which was great, and all that blended in beautifully with the books. But no. To answer your question, I didn't really have that background. It's like I wasn't working in the publishing industry. I wasn't working, I wasn't writing fiction, little short stories, none of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So, Chad, you mentioned earlier in the conversation C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite authors, and he wrote the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the children's books, the Narnia books, and he and Tolkien, sometime would be a little combative on how overtly Christian should their books be. And I'm cool if a book's overtly Christian, great, tell Bible stories, or if it's more of parallels some parables or something, but it doesn't overtly talk about faith in Christ or something like that. So what's your philosophy with these books?
Yeah, very much so. Like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It's the analogy of it, and it's really the very quality of the story. I mean, if the Britfield series is based on family, friendship, loyalty, courage, hope, faith, I mean, these are the very foundation pieces. But there's nothing overt about it. Our demographic is globally. For all families, all backgrounds, to enjoy these books, and just appreciate really good literature and learn and just really impact a worldwide audience. But again, based in those core values.
Right.
Call it.
Now, can you have the good quality values that, mankind's advancement and the Christian faith has been based upon forever, while enjoying things like talking about magic and other stuff? Like you mentioned with Narnia, I think you said the word witchcraft, which could have a negative connotation. Yeah. I've got the Narnia books right here that I've had forever on audio there, and just because it's fun, listen to it with my kids. I don't think there's any danger in that, but different people have different philosophies. Where would you land on something like Narnia?
Yeah, it's interesting too, and I've never really been asked that particular question. So I don't think there's anything good in magic, if that makes sense. I think the whole Harry Potter argument is good witches versus bad witches, and I would say there are no good witches. There's no good witchcraft. There are no good vampires, and so I think I'd be careful with that world of introducing it, because behind it is a lot of stuff that is dark. Now with Narnia and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I mean, it's one of the most popular books. It's kind of the Christian go-to, for the classics and for the kids to read, and I'm sure that's fine. I mean, you can look at some of the books I loved. James and the Giant Peach. Well, you had a magical peach, but I loved that. You know what I mean? That was cool.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though. Is there a separation between the magical peach, the witch, and the wardrobe? Because at the end of the day, my personal opinion is, hey, no big deal if you're not, actively trying to become, involved in witchcraft. I just see those as two different things.
No, and I agree, too. And I'm coming back kind of full circle to Narnia, because it was the good versus the witch, or what she was behind, or the evilness that she was doing. And so they were standing against that. And, that's very prevalent. It's very authentic. It's very real of what's happening, in today's society as from the beginning of time. You know what I mean? I mean, the types of spells and occultism that's in Harry Potter is real stuff. Whether you believe it or not, they do. And it's very dangerous. But with that said, I mean, it's here. Witchcraft actually is the fastest growing religion in the world, mostly thanks to the Harry Potter movement. And so it's good to be aware of that and to counter it and to not partake of it. And so I think in that particular case, I don't think C.S. Lewis is arguing that there's good and bad witches, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's just three kids on this journey and facing that. So absolutely.
So when it comes to Harry Potter, my wife's always loved the Harry Potter movies. I've watched the films. I've not read the books. She has the books right over there on her bookshelf. You're not going to offend me at all. I just want to hear your take on how does that affect a home? If you have those books in the home versus if my boys have never read them.
Truthfully, they should physically not be in the home. They're that bad. Yeah. Nor should they really be reading them. And it's funny too, because it's divided. I've met, probably hundreds, if not thousands of Christian kids, families that love the series and read it. In my opinion, they shouldn't. And lots that oppose it and don't. You know what I mean? And so it's an interesting divided line, but it's I don't think it should be in the household. Yeah,
I'm sensitive to your argument. You notice how I opened up this interview. I said I think almost by osmosis these things can trickle in. For me, there was a period of time where I was, as a Christian, had now this was mostly because of my own sin in my life. I had opened myself up to a world that I would have ever called it a cult. I might have thought it was a bit new agey, but just these other ideas. It never came from Harry Potter because I'd never read the books. But I do think that when somebody if they don't have a solid foundation in Jesus Christ or in the Bible, things like this. I mean, I went over there and we had technical difficulty and grabbed the book. I think it can, come into the mind, but can you explain like how that can happen?
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I'm not arguing from an opinion side point because I've done deep research into all this stuff, and the whole Harry Potter series was designed to bring black magic and witchcraft into the hearts and minds of children in this world. It was designed for that. It's so
JK Rowling, when she sat down and wrote those books, she's thinking, I want to bring black magic into the homes.
I have a lot of evidence, and this is kind of how it's. If we want to go deep here, I
Sure.
don't believe she's actually the official. I don't believe she's the author of it. She's an actor, and they often do that. It's actually based on a real Potter who was an occultist, and in the late 1800s, and it's a lot of his stories and stuff that he wrote. And So what they need to do is they always do. Like let's look at Facebook. Do you think that little nitwit started that $500 million corporation?
Yeah,
that was a DARPA project, $500 million. They closed it, and the next day, Facebook was launched. And so, they pull in this actor, and what's his background? Who's he connected with? I mean, it's all connected, and it's like, so he's not this little genius. Bill Gates? Are you kidding me? He can barely spell his name. All these garage sale geniuses. No, they're not. Yes, they're just actors. And so, a lot of these books and book series, it's almost physically impossible for anyone to have written it so quickly. But it's a great story. The divorced woman up there in Scotland, freezing because she doesn't have heat in her apartment. So she's at this little cafe scratching together this story. Give me a break. This is a multi-billion-dollar. This is a Tavistock, if you're familiar with the Tavistock Institute.
I am.
This is a classic Tavistock Institute initiative to elevate literature to another level and really bring witchcraft in there. I mean, it's hardcore witchcraft.
Okay.
That's what it is.
All right. Yeah. So I'm tracking with you. All right. People that know what you know, that say the things you just said about Tavistock Institute, the conspiracies, people like Zuckerberg not really being the originator of Facebook. I get it. My audience gets it. You said with your series, Britfield, that it is about to get a global, more of a global audience than it has. You're talking about films. My thought on that is people that know what you know typically don't get that kind of platform. How are you getting the kind of monetary backing to do this? I mean, because your story's pretty fantastic too. You're scratching out things on a paper at a financial planners meeting or whatever it was, and now you're traveling the world about to launch movies and books everywhere. It's insane.
Yeah, it's this is almost 15 years now in the planning. It's an internal core of a team that we've put together and assembled. It's private investors. We built our own publishing house. We built our own marketing company. So we are absolutely on the outside of the entire industry, but we're elevated above the industry because the industry's way down here, still selling 8-track players, and telling you what you should be reading, what they think is important. None of it, relevant stuff. So we're outside the system. We're setting a new standard in literature to the system, and we're approaching it very differently. And it's interesting too, because like when we launched in 2019, you'd think like get it into the bookstores, and it's like bookstores for me was like a third tier. All right, my first tier, elementary and middle schools, directly to my source, coming in there, 200 kids, talking about this Britfield book series, selling, 80 to 100 books sometimes on a presentation. Those books were signed personally to those kids, those students, and went home with them to read. You know what I mean? And so basically, we've kind of wiped out the retailer, or the middleman, or the system of the way that it needs to go.
You took the MC Hammer approach, man. He was selling the cassette tapes out of the back of his truck at the clubs. Yeah. That's what you're doing with the schools and the books.
Yeah, no, really. I mean, how many authors that drives 9,000 miles? I drove all the way up to Seattle. I drove all the way over to Chicago. I was in Texas for a month, got all the way down to New Orleans and all the way up to Memphis, Tennessee, that in March 2020, suddenly this whole thing happened. And I literally had to turn around and come all the way back. Because we were ready to get up to, Indiana and then Ohio and all that, and then East Coast and then South and all of that. And it's okay. We, after that, we started to do the virtual author visit, and it works easier for me, much easier to roll out of bed in the morning, and come on to virtual. We got down to Georgia and Florida. That was really cool and stuff, and Indiana and some other places. And then eventually, like I said, Australia and other countries and stuff with the virtual author visit.
I fully understand the power of the blood, sweat, and tears and the passion that goes into something. And you can go to a certain level of height. But since 2020, we have seen a massive global pushback against traditional values, against the kind of things that I think Britfield would espouse. Yet you're seemingly able to penetrate through the teeth of that. You said so I can understand traveling and driving to schools, and you're signing books, and it's awesome. The parents love what you're doing, but you go outside of that. You're talking about Europe and getting to a national level. Are you seeing pushback from the powers that be that want to block this kind of really positive spirituality? Truthfully,
I think so in a lot of ways and on a lot of different levels, and things that shouldn't take so long take a lot longer, 10 times longer, and things like that. But again, we're kind of creating our own industry. I'm not a Netflix fan by any means, and they've gone way off the reservation, but they're an interesting model. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like they're not even on the same planet anymore, but they're an interesting model. They start out as a video, other people's work, and then they start their own studio. And it's like, I remember Hollywood saying at the time, like, you can't do that. And it's like, you're a video rental. You can't have a production studio. And they're like, why not? And it's like, and then they go out and they do a series, and like, you can't release it all at the same time. You got to do it once a week. And they're like, why not? And I'm using that as an example that like we have to think differently. Your audience needs to think differently. You need to think above this stuff and forget the industry, the mainstream media. I mean, what a joke! It's dead. I mean, they're done. I mean, they're absolutely finished. I mean, people need to be watching shows like your shows and stuff.
Well, thank you.
The point is like, you guys can be redefining the industry now. You can be redefining the publishing industry, redefining the film industry. They're not the watermark. They're way down here in the sewer. And we're at a time and two things have happened. Yes, there's been a big pushback against traditional values since 2020, and that's been around since day one. Hundreds of years. These huge orchestrated plans. I mean, go back to World War II and what was happening with the Federal Reserve, and then crashing the entire economy, and then bringing in Roosevelt, who was no more than just a communist. You know what I mean? It's like this stuff's been around. I mean, think about the '60s, how horrible that was, and the drugs and the free sex and stuff.
Oh yeah,
we know all the usual suspects behind this. But I'm just saying, it's like, oh my gosh, look how bad it is. It's been bad from day one.
Well, there's one key difference though is the ability to control I understand there's the rumbles, which is what the majority of my long form videos are on, but there's a coordinated control and a globalism that has taken shape that's a whole nother level than the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or even early 2000s, where if I say the wrong thing, I get canceled off the big platforms. So when you talk about going outside of the traditional channels, but yet you're talking about movies, so obviously you're not going to Netflix, I don't think. You're probably not going to the. Where are you going?
Great content. You're great. We got a great movie. You know what I mean? We've got a great story, and that sells. And so it's not like every single person, involved in all the big places are bad and evil. You know what I mean?
Sure.
We're looking for great content that can make a lot of money, and so that's good too. But I also think too, like, from 2020, think about it this way: with the internet, that's had a huge backlash. We are more awakened right now. This generation is more awake of what's going on behind the scenes than since the beginning of history. That's a fact. You have millions and millions of parents and families and people and moms and dads that for the first time are questioning the narrative, are not watching the mainstream, are questioning their doctors, are saying, by the way, are, anywhere from 50 to 60 injections necessary by the time they're 12 years old. Are you out of your freaking mind? So I'm just saying, you're seeing so much stuff go on right now. We're awake. And so what you're also seeing on the other side is an enemy. We're in the last days of Nazi Germany. That's my opinion. We're in an educational reformation. We're in a creative revolution. We're in a homeschool revolution right now. We've gone from 5 million to almost 20 million in 4 years, homeschool parents. Radical things that are happening. And so you've got a caged, cornered enemy that's freaking out. Curtain's been pulled, lots of exposure. You're seeing that exposure. Have you ever seen more exposure in the last 2 or 3 weeks? I'm sorry, last 2 to 3 years.
No.
Are you seeing, the curtain that used to be here, or the mask, that was behind this stuff. And it's like, look what they're saying. Look what they're doing.
Yeah, the Wizard of Oz, man behind the curtain, has been exposed in a big way, but there's a big divide I see happening where certain people are just clinging to the old narratives that they've always believed in, the globalists. But you're on the money. So when you say you've created a great story, right, and those sell. But you can't drive to Poland, and when you're talking about the movies, what is the district? Like when somebody wants to buy it, where are they going to go?
Well, no, I mean, the movies will be a major motion picture. I mean, they'll be in all the theaters out there.
Okay.
We're already in negotiations with a major distributor.
Okay.
And if that falls through, then we'll get another distributor. If that falls through, we'll create our own distribution company and get them into all the theaters. You have to just think differently now. Yeah, it's harder, but it's like, has anything of value ever been easy? You know what I mean? I just think, we need to set a new watermark, and that's what we're trying to do with the Britfield series. It's like, well, you compare it to other literature, and it's like, I don't want to compare it to the other literature that's out there because it's horrible. It's crap. Or the Britfield film, what does it compare to? And it's like, there's a couple you can kind of anchor into it. Frankly, I don't know of any movie like Britfield Lost Crown in cinematic history, and I've been studying that for 30 years. There's not a lot of other movie like it. We are anticipating it will be one of the highest grossing films in cinematic history. We're going to set box office records. You're going to have lines around theaters. You're going to have parents coming back, 3-5 times to watch the movie again. It's going to blow your mind, and it's exciting. And so it's a movement, and it's huge. So whatever we need to do and pivot and transition, we'll do it. You know what I mean? So.
Sure. Well, hey, I love the enthusiasm. There must be quite a financial backing because I understand the stories being great, and I'm going to get these books. feel like I have to. But on top of that, to have you were talking about it's harder. It takes more time to bust through some of these objections and different things that are put in our path. So it sounds like you do have some great financial backers that are going to help you get through that, which is awesome. I want to pull up
real quick, just as an example. I mean, looking at mainstream, that's the media, let's say, for this or the news, and that's been the baseline. That's billions of dollars that's gone into that infrastructure, and yet you have alternative sites out there that are garnishing more viewership than they are on the best programs. And so tell me that's not a major transition, and even with Hollywood, it's like nothing's done in Hollywood anymore. You can go out and put together a great movie script and pull together your own team and your own financial backing. Look at Angel Studios, and I'm not promoting them, but it's just like, here's a brand new Angel Studios. They do Sound of Freedom for, what was it, $15 million, and it does $215 million. I'm sorry, $15 million budget. There's $215 million at the box office. And again, I'm not promoting the film. I've heard all about it. I know a lot of background behind it, but I'm giving that as an example. We can set these new standards. You can build your own studio. You don't have to, I'm not talking big structure. You know what I mean? Bring together your own team. The days of the old 16 millimeter cameras that were $50,000. You can go out and get a red camera, digital red camera for $1,500 or rent it or something and go out and shoot some incredible scenes or shoot a short or shoot a series. Everything has changed. You know what I mean? And there's so many different platforms. I mean, think about television. Remember when it was 4 to 5 stations? I remember when the big bad Fox came along, and it's like, what's Fox, going to do? And all of a sudden they became number one at one point. But there was only 5. Now there's thousands of different stations, and still nothing really good to watch. But the point is there's just so many alternatives out there.
Absolutely.
We can use so many different vehicles we can use, and we'll always do that. We'll always flank. And little by little, the enemy is absolutely losing their strength. They know it. They're losing their grip. Their roots are shriveling up. We're not buying their crap anymore. We're questioning everything. And we don't like their content. I don't think we're a divided nation. I really don't. I think 90% of people are basically just good and just want to get up in the morning and have a nice job and do something fun on the weekend and take care of their kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's the enemy. It's the liberals. It's this just satanic garbage that makes it seem like, oh, look how divided we are. Forget their statistics. Their statistics are make-believe. They're all made up. 40% say, no, they don't. You know what I mean? 50%, or we're divided in here. All fake, all nonsense, all lies. Yeah.
You brought up Angel Studios, and there was another company that was kind of tracking with, go back 6-7 years, way before Sound of Freedom. Angel Studios, I think, was just starting to get involved with The Chosen. I think they're things like that around that period. Maybe it was 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
But there was another studio, and I wish I could think of the name, but they did Pilgrim's Progress. I'll pull that up real quick. They did a movie like this. Can you see that on the screen there?
Oh yeah, I just pulled them up recently. Yeah, I know who they are.
They did Pilgrim's Progress. They did one of the Francine Rivers novels. That was a great book. I can't think of the name of it either. But anyway, you got 2 studios that are both putting out Christian type content. Angel Studios takes off. The other one was, I remember my own family was giving money to the other one, trying to hope that they would, take off as well. And they really didn't. I mean, most of their films have been non-profitable. They've fallen flat. Although they had really good ideas, I think they had good content. I actually enjoyed that Pilgrim's Progress movie, although the graphics seem like it's about 7 years, behind what maybe a Pixar would be at. What would you say is the reason, and maybe you're unfamiliar with the studio I'm talking about, but Angel versus other Christian studios that just kind of fall off?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it's kind of an in-depth question because there's a lot of different tentacles to that because we have a lot of understanding or background in that field. Unfortunately, most of those companies don't have the quality or the storyship, if you will. I'm talking about faith-based movies or industry, and it's like they're just terrible. It's like, oh, look at all the persecution. I'm like, no, it's just a crap story. Nobody wants to see another Christian baseball movie. Who's your audience? And it's like Tank or another Christian race car driving movie. Give me a freaking break. I mean, just write a great story. And so I think part of it is that, they don't have the professionalism. They don't, and I don't know, I haven't seen it, so I'm not criticizing. But it takes a lot of money, so they underestimated it. I don't know their business background. Like I came from an investment banker standpoint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've been in business for 25 years. So while I'm a creative and the author of the series, it's like I have a great sense of business and marketing and strategy and all that kind of stuff. You need a great team. I mean, it's not just about the story. It's like if you build it, they won't come unless they know you're there. So you can have the greatest product in the world. I can have the greatest book, but if nobody knows it exists. So some of it might have been that they could have been cheated. I know a lot of people that got burned. Like a friend of mine that put together a great movie and was trying to take it in, burned and lost a ton of money. And so you got to be very savvy. You got to be very smart. You got to be shrewd. Not rude, but shrewd. You got to be smart. You got to build a team. That's what we've done. You've got to have the right legal team. You got to have the right accounting team. And so there's a lot in it. And I say none of this discourage anybody. And it's like, well, I just wanted to go out and do a movie. You know what I mean? I just wanted to write a book. It's like, well, do it. But I'm just saying, if you're building this kind of franchise or this infrastructure, it's like, you need, and another thing they always fall into is like, I'm the writer, director, actor. And it's like, really? You need to do all those things? I mean, what's more important, the project or you? And you see that all the time. And I see that especially with the scripts. Oh, it's a script that I wrote. That's fantastic. I didn't realize that you had 20 years of script writing background and this is your 10th script. You know what I mean? Because that's usually what they say, between your 7th or 8th, you finally have the gift. They want to cheat. They want to leapfrog. God doesn't leapfrog. God doesn't cheat. There is a big thing about the difference between a hobby and a profession is 10,000 hours. That's 10,000 hard hours, not just time going by, but dedicated hours on your craft. I spent decades, writing scripts and stories. So when I came to Britfield and Lost Crown, I had an amazing background in storytelling, and it's why the books have done so well. It's based on the 3-act structure. It's economy of words. I enter late, I leave early. It's sharp dialogue. I learned all of that from years and years and years of experience. I'm very fortunate for that. But it wasn't like, one day I just thought together I was going to slap together this. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. And a lot of these guys, they have like ideas for this sort of faith-based movie or this Christian type of movie. And it's, I want $5 or $10 million based on what? What experience? Have you been in the industry for a long time? Who's the script writer? I mean, are they really good? Do you have a great story? Story. I don't care. I mean, you could sit there and have a $100,000 budget, but have a great story of two brothers coming together at this little like cottage in Maine, and you've got a great hour-and-a-half movie and knock the ball out of the park versus these other dumb sports things that you're doing. And the story doesn't even start until page 30. I've seen it over and over and over and over again. It's that lack of professionalism and mediocrity that is absolutely poisoning the conservative market. Just write a better script, write a better story.
Yeah.
You do that, and Hollywood will never be able to compete with you again. There's an 85% gap out there right now for that good family-friendly content. 85% gap globally for good content. You can't fill it fast enough.
I know one of the reasons, now this may not be a big one, but it's got to be part of it because I've run into it being in Christian circles as long as I have. If you want to create something that's truly enticing and feels like real life, I think a lot of people that are trying to create something, they're so afraid of offending people in the Christian community. Like, oh, if I put this in there, or, like walking through the big city of Atlanta or New York, you may hear, a regular director that's not thinking about his Christian audience is just going to make it like a scene from New York, right? But a Christian director is thinking, okay, I can't have that. I can't have this. So they sort of box themselves in sometimes. I ran into it all the time as an athlete playing pro sports as a Christian guy. It's like there's that world, and then there's the world at church, and never the two shall meet. And it can be tough. It can be complicated.
Yeah, real quick though, it's interesting though, back to Angel Studios, and I know I follow the box office, frankly, daily. And it was just the launch of the first 3 episodes, I think, of the 4th season of The Chosen. I think they've done almost, $7 million at the box office. That's awesome. It's just like, it's a television series. And it's just like, here's the first 3 episodes. Like, I love seeing those kind of successes. But yeah, I'll say this too, like, and I'm a huge proponent of this, especially with film. You never need profanity and you never need nudity. And I'll argue that until the ends of earth. And I'm going back to that scene, it's like 2 top cops, in the Bronx, fighting and stuff. And it's like, we got to get the profanity in there, man, because that's real. And it's like, no, it isn't. It's offensive, and it's like, well, his partner just got shot, so he's going to drop the F-bomb 5 times. It's like, no, that's just crap amateur writing. you could just, I mean, you could sit there, zoom in the camera on him for 5 seconds. He doesn't say a word. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm shaking, and you made me tremble, with
Sure.
just a look or movement. Take the freaking filth out of it. You don't need it. Get out of this nudity. Oh, well, I'm just, it's artistic. No, it isn't. It's pornography. And they know that, And I'll tell you some interesting statistics. For every R movie that you make into a PG-13 movie, you make more money. For every nude scene that you take out of a movie, you make more money. For every profanity word you take out of a movie, you make more money. Hollywood knows that. Hollywood wasn't created to make money. They're bankrupt. Have you seen these bombs coming out? Disney is all but finished. I mean, they're a disaster. And how's that working out for Disney? But the point is it's not about that. It's about propaganda. It's about changing. It's about dividing and conquering. It's about destroying the family, undermining America along with other countries and things like that. I mean, the whole industry is designed for propaganda.
So. Well, hey, no, those are great points. I'd love to wrap with you on that more, but I know we're running short on time. I want to pull up your main website, which I think is awesome. Sure. Talk us through real quick. I know the books are available here, but kind of walk us through the website and what else people can find.
Yeah, it's a really fun, interactive website. I'm still signing books. I mean, obviously you can get us on Amazon and I think 80 or 100 other platforms, Barnes & Noble, etc. But if you do buy through the Britfield website, you still get signed books, which is kind of cool. So I'm still doing that. It's really fun. So if you're reading book 1, Britfield Lost Ground, it's designed to be taught in the classroom or homeschool group. We've got, go to the store.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you want to, oh, it's okay. Go to the store. So this is some of our products, but we have a study guide. There's the play. So if you're a school, if you're a homeschool group, want to put on the play, we actually have the turnkey operation to put on the play. It's a 90-minute 2-act play, rolls for over 30 actors. We have the director's notes, the actor's notes, actor's script, everything, digital slides. So we have the study guide. If you go down a little bit more, I think a little bit more. Yeah, there it is somewhere. There it is.
Study guide.
Yeah, so it's a 83-page study guide based on academic standards, and so it's like you could teach Britfield Lost Crown in the classroom, to your homeschool group, which is kind of cool. We're already being taught in hundreds of schools across the nation. We're already in thousands of schools across the nation. So the website's just kind of this great resource. And if you want to go back up, it's kind of fun. You could see go to tour. Yeah. And then you go down a little bit. And this was some pictures and some feedback from our tour.
Oh, wow.
Headed around. That's the Oaks Christian up there on the big one. It's up in LA, one of the top schools in LA. A lot of the actors' kids go there, ironically. And then, some big auditoriums and some small little rooms. You can keep going down. There's lots of pictures, lots of feedbacks, all from the parents. It's traveling all over.
Boy, you sure did.
A lot of fun. And then if you go to the play, real quick, this is kind of fun. We went all the way at the end of the play. Yeah, there you go. Great. Actually, go up a little bit. Yeah, there you go. So this is actually, so we piloted it at a school in Southern California last October, 2 Octobers ago, over 4 nights. So very successful. So exciting to take this story onto the theater specifically for your elementary, middle school. Give them a real play, current time, something fun, educational, historical, not a musical, so you don't alienate 90% of kids that want to go out for theater. And it's cool. It's got over 28 sound effects, 53 digital slides if you have a projector. So it's like as they're flying over England, you can see these gorgeous pictures and shots. If you go down a little bit, you can see, and then keep going down. There's our cast.
Cool.
A lot of fun. So
yeah, that's fantastic. Well, man, it sounds like you have a wonderful world that you've created here, and I'm going to buy my book today, I think, or the first one, just because I think we need more of this in our homes. There's no doubt about that, and I wish you all the best of success. I look forward to having you back on because you know a lot more than just the Britfield world, obviously, with the conspiracies and things like that, and my audience eats that up. So thank you for connecting those two worlds for us.
Yeah, I've been relearning history for 12 years, so it's quite fascinating.
Me too.
But it's funny because a lot of that stuff ties into the series, especially in book 2 and 3, which is kind of cool. In fact, I remember when book 2 came out, I'd have a lot of people that were contacting me saying, "What are you, prophetic?" Because I was talking about digital currency and quantum computers and D-Wave computers and all this other stuff. And it's because it just fit the narrative and the stuff that was happening right now. And it's just like, yeah, I've been studying it for a while. So anyway.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again, Chad. Wish you all the best going forward, and we will talk to you again soon, my friend.
Thank you again. Appreciate it for being on.